Adventure Quest Worlds, or AQW for short, launched back in October 2008. It was a free-to-play 2D browser MMO made by Artix Entertainment, the same team behind the single-player Adventure Quest. Here's the thing, most MMOs at the time needed huge downloads, subscriptions, or a beefy PC to even run. AQW? Nah. All you needed was an internet connection, open your browser, and boom, you were in. That's why it became so huge. For a lot of kids, this was their very first online game. You didn't need permission to install anything. You didn't need money. You didn't even need a good computer. Just make a character, jump in, and start exploring. Add in weekly updates, silly humor, and surprisingly big community, and AQ went from a fun little experiment to one of the most recognizable 2D MMOs of its era. So why did AQW blow up the way it did? It came down to a perfect mix of design choices and community focus. First, anyone could play it. Didn't matter if you have a brand new PC or some clunky family computer from the early 2000s, if you had internet, you could log in. That kind of accessibility opened the door for thousands of players. Then there were the weekly updates. Every single Friday, without fail, there was something new. A quest line, a boss fight, maybe a new class or rare items to grind for. That consistency kept players coming back because you never wanted to miss what was happening next. Then the seasonal events were another huge draw. Mogloween, Frostval, Friday the 30th. These weren't just small updates. They felt like full-blown holidays inside the game. For a lot of us, those events were just as exciting as real-life traditions. And of course, the backbone of AQ was its story. The Chaos Saga remains one of the most iconic narratives in MMO history. Instead of mindlessly leveling up, you were thrown into an epic battle against the Chaos Lords, leading up to the ultimate showdown with Drakat, the champion of Chaos. But AQW didn't just give you a storyline, it gave you choices. Through the good versus evil wars, you could pledge loyalty to King Alteon and the forces of good, or side with Gravelin and the forces of evil. These wars were massive server-wide events, and they gave the community a sense of purpose and rivalry that felt personal. On top of all that, the community itself was thriving. Battle On was always packed. People were role-playing in Yulgar's Inn, and guild invites pop up left and right. Even if you weren't on a quest, just being part of that would felt alive. Then there was the class system. Paladin, Doom Knight, Ninja, Necromancer, each one had its own unique set of skills and playstyles. Players would spend weeks farming for their dream class, and finally unlocking it felt like a huge achievement. PvP also had its place. Sure, it was janky and not always balanced, but dueling in the arena or testing your class against someone else actually meant something. It was a badge of honor. And finally, guilds. They weren't the most advanced system, but they gave players an identity. Being part of a guild meant you had a crew, people to farm with, and a banner to represent. For many, that sense of belonging was just as important as the gameplay itself. And of course, the grind is what forged so many memories. Farming wasn't just about numbers, it became a test of patience, persistence, and dedication. Legendary items like the blinding light of destiny, Sepulture's Doom Knight armor, or even that one rare drop from a boss weren't just pixels on a screen. They were milestones, trophies that defined your journey. For many players, finally seeing that rare item drop after weeks of farming was a moment you never forget. It wasn't just loot, it was proof of your commitment. But beyond power, AQW put huge emphasis on cosmetics. This was one of the first MMOs where fashion really was the endgame. Showing off a unique set of armor, a rare cape, or a hard-earned weapon in Yulgarsin was its own kind of flex. Some players spent more time perfecting their outfit than battling monsters and in AQ. That was completely valid. Style was identity and identity was everything. Together, these features created more than just gameplay loops. They created memories, traditions, and personal stories that made AQW feel bigger than the game itself. Now let's be real. The game wasn't perfect. The combat system was extremely simple. Most classes relied on the same rotation of 4 to 5 skills, and while that was fun and easy to learn at first, it didn't have much depth. After a while, fights boiled down to clicking the same buttons over and over again. Farming? absolutely brutal at times. Some quests required hundreds, even thousands of monster kills for a single item, and if you are farming for something like the BLOD or Doom Knight Armor, you weren't just grinding for hours, you were grinding for weeks. For many players, it became a test of sheer patience. The Adventure Coin Shop also created a divide. A lot of the coolest looking cosmetics, rare classes, or even convenience items were locked behind ACs, which meant spending real money. Free to play players weren't left out, but compared to AC users, the grind was way harsher and the progress was much lower. PvP had its own share of problems. Balance was almost non-existent at times. Certain classes like Legion Revenant, Chrono Assassin, or other overpowered releases could one-shot people with ease, making fights feel more unfair than competitive. It was fun for the chaos, but not for anyone looking for a truly balanced duel. Guild Guilds, while present, were pretty bare bones. They gave players a banner to stand under and a way to organize with friends, but they didn't have the same depth as guild systems in other MMOs. No shared progression, bases, or real long-term goals beyond community. And then came the biggest hit, the death of Adobe Flash in 2020. AQW had been built entirely around Flash, and when it was officially discontinued, the entire game was at risk. Artix Entertainment saved it with a custom launcher, but the magic of just opening your browser, logging in instantly, and being in game within seconds, the part of AQ's charm was gone forever. So was AQW the greatest MMO of all time? Nah, but for what it was, a free browser game? Absolutely. It didn't matter if you're a casual or hardcore player, broke or paying, role player or PvPer, AQW had something for everyone. For a whole generation of players, this game was the greatest 2D MMO of its time. And here's the part that surprises a lot of people. AQW is still alive in 2025. Over 17 years later, it's still pulling in around 3,000 daily players. Every week, there's new updates, new storylines, and seasonal events just like back then. The faction wars are still happening, with players rallying together to push war meters and fight for their side. Where cosmetics are still being flexed in your guards in, and yes, people are still farming insane drops like it's 2010. AQ's influence didn't stop there. In 2016, AQ 3D came out. Same humor, same vibes, but in full 3D and cross-platform. You could log in on PC, then switch to your phone. Cool idea, but it never hit the same way AQW did. Now we've got Adventure Quest Infinity. This is what a lot of fans are calling AQW's real successor. Cross-platform, better PvP balances, deeper guild system, and even ways to bring some of your AQW progress into the new game. If AQ3D was the experiment, Infinity feels like the rebirth, a true second chance to capture what made AQW special in it the first place.